And we're here with a former Pittsburgh Steelers GM who is a two-time Super Bowl champion executive, a North Catholic alum, and the right-hand man of North Catholic President Father Bober. It is Mr. Kevin Colbert. Mr. Colbert, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Alex. How's it going today?
It's going good. It's great to have you here. It really is.
So, Mr. Colbert, to start off, you're a football guy, so we'll give you a football question to start. You were involved in the hiring process of a new football coach for North Catholic. How did you enjoy that process, and what made Coach Rizzo the right man for the job?
You know, it was a fun process. Mr. Benzig was on the committee along with Ty Ryan, another alumni of North Catholic, and we put together our thoughts and solicited applicants. And Coach Rizzo, he found the posting of the job and reached out to us. Unbeknownst to us, once we reviewed his resume and talked to him as a committee, he was very impressive from the start. And his intention was for he and his wife to come back to the Pittsburgh area. They went to Bethel Park High School, and he had moved to Arizona just to advance their coaching and teaching careers. And he just wanted to come back home, and that was intriguing to us. And he had success coaching out in Arizona. He made it to the state championship, and unfortunately he was the runner-up, but that was impressive nonetheless. And when we started talking, and we really didn't talk too much football, because when you're interviewing for a coach, you got to get the right person, and you got to get the right person for your high school. And for North Catholic, we thought Coach Rizzo was the guy.
I can't think of a better person to hire a coach than you, sir, at least for North Catholic, as far as that goes. When you're looking for a coach, whether it be here at North Catholic or at the professional level with the Steelers, what were some things that you look for in terms of hiring a coach? You just talked about the person being so important. When you need a head coach, is that different in terms of the leadership aspects that you look for, maybe in a position coach or coordinator with the Steelers?
It was, and I was very involved with the hiring of Coach Tomlin. So you go out and you look for the right person, and the Steeler organization had picked that right person 2 times previously with Coach Chuck Knoll and Coach Bill Cowher, who both ended up being very successful Hall of Fame coaches. So they knew what they were doing in their establishing the criteria, and I learned from them. And the most important thing is that person has to be a great person. It has to be a person of character, a person with values similar to that of the organization. And obviously we felt that was with Coach Tomlin, and Coach Tomlin has proven to be that person of great character who has the same values as the organization. So I think you look at that, and we did the same thing with Coach Rizzo. We knew the values of North Catholic. We understood Coach Rizzo's values, and we thought that was a good match. So I think that's a big part of it. The X's and O's, sure, that's obviously of some importance, but it's not the most important, because this person has to be able to lead. And sometimes if they haven't been in that position, you don't know, and you just try to make an educated guess.
So, speaking of the Steelers, the Rooneys are there, and they're North Catholic alums as well. How special was it to share that connection with them?
It was awesome. When Mr. Rooney was still living and I was working with the Steelers, we talked about North Catholic often. He always wanted to keep his finger on the pulse of what was happening at the school. Of course, back then we were part-time at North Catholic, and then when we moved the school out to Cranberry, he still remained very connected, and I tried to keep him connected as best I could, because I was doing some work with North, while obviously still with the Steelers. But North Catholic was always at the forefront of his thinking. It was amazing what he could understand and appreciate about what we were trying to do here, while also still being in charge of the Steelers.
Since Father Bober has taken over as president in October, you've come into a consultancy role with the school, and you're really his right-hand man. We just saw Father Bober a couple of minutes ago before you came in. We were talking to him, and how much you meant to him in the work that you've done, making his job so much easier. What has your relationship been like with Father Bober over the years, and have that connection and that trust between you two to work as such a tight pair for the betterment of the school?
Yeah, Father Bober, when we moved back here when I say back here, back to the Pittsburgh area after being in Detroit for 10 years. We moved into the Mars area. We were in Adams Township at that time, and St. Killian's was our parish, and that's before we built the new church and school across the way. We were a small little parish in downtown Mars, and that's where we first met Father Bober. And when you meet Father Bober, you're immediately attracted to him and what he stands for. And, you know, he was like that when we met him at St. Killian's, and he continues to be like that in his role as the pastor of St. Mark the Evangelist, which is Holy Sepulchre and St. Killian's, and also as the interim president of North Catholic. And when he was named that president, or the interim president, he asked me to be part of his transition team. And what I just try to do is assist him as best I can, because he's very busy with obviously being the pastor of such a huge parish. And it's my pleasure and honor to be able to help him here, because he's doing everything for the right reasons.
So obviously you're heavily involved in North Catholic, and to be able to go back in your high school as an alum and help out obviously means something to you. What would you say North Catholic means to you, and what is special about North Catholic?
And again, it's funny because I just came from I'm on the Hall of Fame committee with two great alums, Mr. Walt Quinn, who taught here since the beginning of time and still is involved as, you know, he puts out the newsletter for the alumni every week. And the head of our Hall of Fame committee was a classmate of mine, Medio Monte. And North Catholic was huge in our lives because it was during those formative years that you young men are in right now, where you're figuring out your life's plan. This school gave us a great foundation, not only the education, but the interpersonal ties that it gave us were huge then, and they're still huge today, because it was special. And it wasn't anything against the public schools, but we all came from a different background. But when we came to North Catholic, we were all together, and that togetherness still exists.
And you think you coming back, it points to the motto "Forever True" to North Catholic?
Yeah, I don't think you can ever get away from it, and it's not something you think about every day, but it's there every day,
Yeah.
and you recognize it. And as you move on in your lives, and you get your own families, and you may have to move away for career, there's that one central focal point that draws you back, and that's North Catholic. Fortunately, that's North Catholic for me.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear.
We've had the chance to interview John Donovan and Len Komorowski, two executives in their fields. John Donovan with AT&T and Len Komorowski with the Cavs and the Eagles and the Timberwolves even before that. But all three of you were so successful in your careers. But despite the high-profile job that you all had, you really had a relatively low profile, a humble kind of disposition in your job. Is that something that is unique to North Catholic? Because I noticed that in all three of you that we've had the opportunity to talk to now. Is that something that was ingrained in you at North Catholic that you carry over the course of your life, or is that just something that's unique to all three of you?
Boy, I really can't answer that, Alex, because I don't know all of our alumni, but the folks that you mentioned, I'm honored to be mentioned in that same realm with those folks. But I think it points to the selflessness that you were taught, not only here at North Catholic, but in our Catholic faith. It's not about us. It's not about you. I'm sorry, it's not about you. It's about us, and how can we stay focused on one common goal. So to me, and again, having been with Mr. Rooney for the years when we were together with the Steelers before he passed, that gentleman lived it every day. And this is one of the greatest owners, if not the best owner of all time, and not only in professional football, but in professional sports, who was 2 offices down from me and came in my office every day as humble as could be. And, say, hey, what's up? I said, not much, Mr. Rooney. Oh, call me Dan or Ambassador. I said, okay, Mr. Rooney. You know what I mean? So you lived it, and you saw that every day. And that gentleman, if it was good enough for him, certainly it was going to be good enough for me. And I'm sure Len and John have similar experiences with other folks that they grew up and learned from.
Mr. Colbert, you always made it a point to get to North Catholic sporting events. We've seen you at plenty of basketball games. Why do you think that's important to support the students and at least be there for them in those
Yeah, and I hope it's not only sports, because there are other endeavors that I want to get to,
Yeah.
and will continue to try to get to, but it's fun. Fortunately, me, my wife, Janice, our family, we love sports, so it's easy to come to an event. Today we have the bocce. I believe it was at 3 o'clock that, I'll be able to get to that. So I want to be able to be part of it, because I think it's important. It's fun, it's easy, but I think it's important for the students, and not only the athletes, but the students, just to say, okay, there's our president. Father Bober was here. Coach Rocco made a great gesture and asked Father Bober to be part of the senior night program, which he wasn't scheduled to be part of. And I know that meant a lot to him, and I hope it meant a lot to the students and the student athletes. But I just think, A, it's fun, and B, it's easy, and if it helps, great.
Building off of that, North Catholic is still a pretty young school here in Cranberry, as we're just now in our 9th full school year here, and it would be the 10th. It might be the 10th full school year. It was established in 2014, and we still don't have a lot of the facilities that some of the other schools have. Do you see that as something in the future for North Catholic to be able to build up, especially in terms of football?
Sure. And again, we want the facility to be the best. But the facility, to me, it's a little bit of a sideshow. We always talked about, if we took the old building from Troy Hill and put it here closer to the population, where the population had moved to, we're going to have a full building. That doesn't mean we don't want the best facilities. Of course we do, but we also have to understand that facilities cost cash.
Yes.
And we have to have the proper finances in order to make sure that we do have those facilities. Do they help? Sure they do. When you have a nice football field or a nice gymnasium or a great library or cafeteria or academic settings and classrooms and labs, that all helps. But it's more than the facilities. It's got to be about
the mission
and the fabric of the people that are here. Central Catholic, and it hurts me to say this, but they're a great school. They're a great, and that'll never die, that rivalry, and that they're going to say the same thing about North Catholic. And I have a lot of great friends from Central. But Central is an older facility. It's done great, and that's good for the kids that go there and their alum, because it's the fabric of Central Catholic. It's not necessarily their gymnasium or their building, and we need to continue to build that here. Can we someday have a better facility? Sure. A more up-to-date athletic practice areas and game areas, so we don't always have to farm that out? Sure. But we have to do it in the proper time and the proper perspective.
To transition more to your career, at what point did you know you wanted to pursue a career in sports? Was it something that you always knew you wanted to do, or it developed over time?
Thankfully, it was just something that was attractive to me. I had a lot of family. I had brothers. I have 4 brothers, 3 of which went to North Catholic. Those 3 all participated in football or baseball or both. I had uncles that went here and coached and participated in sports, so it was part of our lives growing up. And fortunately, I wasn't a great athlete, but I could be involved with it. I participated here, believe it or not, in hockey. The original club hockey teams that we played, you may not even know where the arena is. It's actually a little soccer center right now under the Swickley Bridge. That's where our teams started. We had 2 teams, a red team and a blue team. Just giving you a little history there.
That's awesome.
Ryan. And it was, we didn't even have glass because it was a brand new arena. They only had boards. How about that?
Oh, man.
But anyway, I was able to participate in football, baseball, and hockey. And I love sports, but I wasn't a great athlete. And I just knew it was kind of where I wanted to be professionally. And one thing led to another, CCAC to Robert Morris, who at that time was just starting what was then called athletic administration. That was my major. So I was able to get my degree, which is currently a sports management degree from Robert Morris, and then just kind of lucked out and stayed in sports.
If somebody was to go into a sports management career now, what advice would you give them for pursuing that?
Whatever you guys decide to pursue, I know you're going to be looking at journalism. How about yourself?
Sports management.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go into and do something you love, because if you don't, you're always going to be looking elsewhere. And there may be more lucrative, careers, be it law, be it business, be it engineering, whatever. I just always tell young folks, pursue what you love. Because I love sports, and I was fortunate enough to be able to have a career in sports. But if you're not pursuing what you love, you're not going to pursue it. You're going to do it, but you're not going to love it. And if you don't love it, you're not going to be good at it. And follow your true loves and ambitions, and you'll make a career out of it.
Could you talk a little bit to the value of networking and building connections? I feel like that's one of the most important things that everybody always talks about. How did that affect you, building those connections early on and throughout your career?
It's huge. And again, I'm not going to minimize academic progress, because we all have to get our degrees from North Catholic and St. Bonaventure, Alabama, where you guys are going to go to school. But the connections are what will help you immensely. And again, North Catholic, the Rooneys, as you mentioned, they went to North Catholic. Well, in the old days, their scouting staffs were small, and Mr. Art Rooney Jr., who should be in the National Football League Hall of Fame, and hopefully he gets in soon. He's been nominated, I think, 3 times. But anyway, he did the job of it wasn't called GM at that point, but he did that in the 70s and put together the great 70s teams, and he's in the North Catholic Hall of Fame. But he would hire high school coaches to help their pro scouts, the guys that scouted the NFL players, because they were so small, they didn't have a lot of people working. And then the people that he hired, Ron Hughes was one of them, my high school coach. He would then recommend them for positions in the National Football League. Well, again, Ron Hughes went from being a high school head coach at North Catholic to being a scout with Blesto, the scouting organization, which was headquartered in Pittsburgh, on to the Detroit Lions. And Ronnie was my coach. And again, he kind of got me into the NFL world as an intern with Blesto. So that connection helped me, and it was huge. And if I don't have that connection, I never get connected to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So never minimize the academics. Of course, you have to pursue your academics, but meet folks along the way. And, appreciate, do your work, but also respect and appreciate the people you're going to meet along the way. And they'll probably help you somewhere.
You were in Detroit during the 1991 to 92 season. When was the last time Detroit won a playoff game? Until this year, when they won 2 of them and made it to the NFC Championship game. To see that city finally have some excitement back in their football team, what does that mean to you to see that?
It was exciting, and I was very happy for them. I know a lot of the alumni, Barry Sanders, who still is part of the organization, and Chris Spielman is a little, he's also associated, I forget what his title is with the group, but I was really hoping for them because we had a lot of great years. We were there 10 years. We made the playoffs 6 out of those 10 years. In 1991, we beat Dallas in a divisional round, and then we lost to the Washington then Redskins in the NFC Championship, and that was as close as we got. We made it back to the playoffs a few times. Brett Favre broke our hearts with a last-minute throw across the field to beat us. That was before he was Brett Favre. And from that point on, he was Brett Favre. So you think about that, and you think about what those folks, the fans, went through. And we were really rooting for them this year, but unfortunately, they didn't quite get there. But sooner or later, they will.
Brett Favre had a history of definitely not being an accurate quarterback, and it cost him wins, especially in later in his career, over his time in the playoffs. You back in 2020 when the Kenny Pickett was finishing his college career, you spoke on the influence, and into 2022 when you drafted him, that influence of accuracy and importance of accuracy in a quarterback. Do you think Brett Favre would have been as successful in today's NFL as he was back in the 1990s?
Oh yeah, because a lot of times when you look at guys over different eras and different careers, great players are great players in any era. Because it's hard to compare 2020 players to 1980 players in 1980 era, because the 80 group was asked to do different things than this group. And could this group play in that group? We think great players could play in any era. And Brett was a great player. Like I said, he went, and I'll never forget the play because we had him beat, and he flushes out to his left and throws the ball back across the field about 50 yards, and they beat us. And they went on, and they went on to win a Super Bowl that year, and we went home. So it was great players are great players no matter the era.
So this question we've asked Mr. Donovan and Mr. Komorowski, and was there any specific advice that you were given early in your career or throughout your career that really inspired you and motivated you? And maybe not even a specific piece of advice. I remember Mr. Donovan said his hockey coach at North Catholic meant a lot to him. Was there any specific person or any advice you were given that helped motivate you and inspire you throughout your career?
Yeah, I think you learn at every step of the way. As I mentioned, Mr. Ron Hughes, who was my coach, and he put up with my lack of talent and really tried to give me opportunities, because I only played as a senior at North Catholic in football. I played baseball, and then hockey was 9th and 10th, I believe, and then baseball was 10, 11, 12. I'm saying that as sophomore, freshman, or sophomore, junior, senior, and then football was just a senior. But every step of the way, you live and learn from people, and it's different things they say along the ways and different actions they show. But again, I had mentors and inspirations at the high school level, the college level, and of course into the pros.
In scouting and also in hiring coaches, it's the importance of the person, which you emphasized earlier when talking about hiring coaches. Does that apply the same to players? I'm sure it does, but for my question being that you've seen countless players over the years in your 40 years almost of scouting in the NFL. But is there something that all the players that were great players had in common, whether it be work ethic or passion for the game? What is something that the people that were so successful had in common?
Yeah, I think, Alex, when you go into the Steeler offices, there's a collage of the Hall of Famers. And I've walked in there and I've stopped and I've looked at that picture, that collage, and just like, what's the common denominator? And, the two things that we came up with as a staff was hearts and smarts. Do they really love the game, and do they really understand not only how to play the game, but what the game should mean? And all those folks in that picture had those attributes. Again, Mr. Rooney, his father, they were great people that understood the game and they loved it. And I think that's the common denominator, and we always look for that. I'm aged beyond the analytical world, and I understand the analytics and the importance of information and what it can point to, but it doesn't tell you the story about that person and that player and who can be successful on that field. And again, I think you can apply that to who's going to be the best journalist. Is it going to be the person that gets the most interviews? Probably not. It's going to be the person that loves what he or she does and can direct that information in the proper vein so as to get that message across.
So speaking of analytics, I feel like analytics are, I don't know what to say, overused, but are used a lot now in certain situations, like should you kick a field goal, should you go for it? Do you feel like that has led to teams losing games? Do you feel like it's being overused?
I do, and again, I'm beyond that age, and at the end of my career with the Steelers, obviously it came into play. And, our younger, and I used to encourage our younger scouts. I said, hey, keep me up to date. Tell me what I'm missing. And we had analytic people, and I used to challenge them. I said, when you guys can measure the intangibles, let me know, because that's the most important thing. And there will be certain situations in a game, 4th and 3 from the minus 42 at a minute 31, you're down 3 or you're down 2, what should we do? And it may spit out an answer. But is it also measuring the health of my team in the current state? Who's hot? Who's not? Do I feel the crowd? Do I feel this is going to happen? Can this? Will this? I don't know. I don't think you can have any determination or certainty. Sure, you can get, hey, you should probably do this, but you as the coach or you as that player has to be able to make critical decisions under pressure situations. And I don't think there is any analytic that can measure that. I don't know if there's an intangible that can measure it. I think it's just that feel that coach may have to have at a certain point, and his trust in that player to make that play in that critical situation. We can all look at the numbers and say it should have worked. Well, it didn't. Or you can look and say, wow, how did that work? I don't know, because that player's will to make that play was greater than the one trying to stop
and that's
he or
something
she.
that
So
it can't be measured, like the will.
I don't think so. I don't. And I understand, and, analytics have been around forever. Again, football teams, basketball, baseball, we've all done studies different ways, but it's easier now, and it's more, we can manage it on our laptops or on our phones even, and it makes it quicker and easier and more accessible, but it still comes down to me, humans making human decisions.
Look back at that NFC Championship game a couple weeks ago between the Lions and the 49ers. Just Dan Campbell, its aggressiveness over the course of the season has been very, very impressive in terms of his will and trust in his guys. And he stuck to his guns and stuck to his philosophy in that game. It could have cost him the game, but I think if he didn't do those, you go back and say if Dan wasn't aggressive, then maybe we win the game.
Right. And I'm sure Coach Campbell, and again, I don't know him very well, but I'm sure he made those decisions based on what he was feeling at that time,
Yes.
because that's who he appears to be. And unfortunately, in every game, on every play, there's a winner and there's a loser. And,
Yes.
I've been on both sides of the confetti, and it crushes you when you don't, when you're not on that right side of the confetti. So you have to continue to believe in what you believe in, and hope that it gets you those wins.
And if it works out for him there and they get the first down, then
He's a hero. He's a hero, exactly.
And speaking of, so he mentioned the NFC's championship. Now it's Super Bowl week. Do you have a pick, or who do you think is going to win?
No, I obviously they're both great organizations. They're great teams. To get to where they are, that's hard. It's hard to win a game in any professional sport. It's hard to win a game in a high school sport. But to get to that ultimate game, that's a lot that has to go in your favor. And both those teams are very, very capable, or they wouldn't be there. So I'm just going to look forward to watching it without a skin in the game, so to speak, and enjoy it. And whoever wins, they're going to deserve that win. Personally, I'm a little prejudiced against San Fran, because if they win, they get number 6.
Yep,
yes.
And that they tie us and unfortunately New England for the most wins ever. If Kansas City wins, that'll be their third in this, in this time frame, and that would be one more than the Steelers. So in recent years, you know what I'm saying? So either way, I could go either way, and I don't really have a pick, but I do think it'll be an entertaining game for sure.
Some people think of Patrick Mahomes as one of the greatest players in the history of the game, definitely quarterbacks. Who is the best player that you scouted and believed in that not many other people did?
Wow. Again, fortunate to have been around a bunch of great players, great people who we think didn't play. We have two great examples of free agent players that turned into significant players for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in James Harrison and Willie Parker,
Yes.
both of whom had a huge, Willie in the longest run in NFL history in the Super Bowl, and then James Harrison for probably the greatest play in Super Bowl history.
Yes.
And
That's
both were
amazing.
free agents. And, I used to always tell the scouts, hey, don't brag if a free agent makes it. If we knew he was that good, we should have drafted him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you'd look back on guys like that who made significant plays. And when they came into the league, they had to fight their way for every rep that they got. And, of course, we had first-rounders. Troy's a Hall of Famer. Ben will be a Hall of Famer. But when you pick them high, they're supposed to – you're expecting them to do great things. When the free agent does great things, that's pretty cool. And with James and Willie, that was really significant.
Hines Ward and James Harrison, both semifinalists this year to get into the Hall of Fame. You were on the Fan Morning Show back in, I believe, early December, and you were vouching for them to be into the
Right.
Hall of Fame. Why is that? What was so unique about those guys from your experience? that
Again,
you feel like
I
did?
didn't mention Hines because Hines was drafted before I got there. But they had something to prove, and they were significant contributors to Super Bowl efforts. And both deserve to be in. Again, we get into the numbers, and sometimes the numbers overtake the reasons why these folks should be in. And they were great contributors to Super Bowl championships and great players, and they had significant numbers. So hopefully their time comes up again.
And I feel like you can look at that in every sport. Like you look at hockey this year, Sidney Crosby has, I think, 51 points, and like watching him play, you would think he's one of the best players in the game.
He'll never win the MVP.
And you think he could potentially be up for the MVP, but then it's directly looked at points. Like Nathan
Yes.
McKinnon is playing unbelievable, but it seems to me like sometimes just looking at the stats takes away from who actually is the MVP.
I agree.
Yeah, and when you watch Sidney, and again, I've watched him since he came in, and as a fan, and it's awesome. And you watch him like we watched him Monday night.
Yeah.
Anytime he is on the ice, something good most likely is going to happen. And the way he can see the ice, make a pass, anticipate a pass, and still be in position to make a great defensive play. And it's funny, and you're a hockey player, Ryan, but he doesn't see half the stuff he does. It's amazing because he does it with his face to the wall because he protects the puck so good. And how he makes some of the passes he makes, I don't know. And I wasn't around for we were in Detroit for a lot of Mario's career, but obviously he had unique abilities as well. And I saw a lot of great players when I was younger, and things were just starting off with the Penguins. I saw the great Montreal Canadiens, Guy Lafleur and Bobby Orr with the Bruins, and saw a lot of great ones. But boy, you just appreciate what Sidney Crosby does not each and every game, each and every shift. Rarely do you make a play or he makes a play where you're like, what did he do? Why? He's never making a bad play. And the cool thing about it, it's never good enough for him.
No.
It's never
Yep.
good enough. He's going to, Joe Green taught me that. Joe Green was on our scouting staff after he retired from coaching. And he said, you want to be great? Do it again. And boy, you watch Sidney Crosby, and he does it again and again and again.
Was he in scouting meetings with you with players?
Joe Green?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that one intimidating face to see across the table. You would talk about greatness. He's
No,
as good as it gets.
Joe was, and again, I've been around a lot of great folks, and to have him in that room, it was special. And I remember one year, Dermontti Dawson was doing an internship with us, and Joe Green was on the staff, and we got into a discussion about offensive and defensive linemen. And those two started not debating, just talking about it. And I pulled back and said, "Have at it, guys," because I'm learning as you guys talk. It was really a cool moment.
That's really cool. And there's a lot of armchair GMs in the world who think they know what's right,
Yeah.
and they, I guess, second guess every decision that's made. When you look back, do you regret any decisions, or I guess it could apply to life as well? Like you make the decision that you make, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I always go back to my first year as a Steelers GM. Tom Brady was picked in the 6th round. We took T. Martin in the 5th round. And I always say T. Martin was a great 5th round pick because when you draft in rounds 1, 2, 3, those guys should usually be the starters. Rounds 4 and 5, they're usually the backups. 6 and 7, they're usually practice squad types. And T. Martin was a good backup NFL quarterback. Obviously, Tom Brady was Tom Brady. And at that point, nobody recognized that. And I include New England on that. New England includes himself on that because had they known that, they, of course, would have taken him with their first pick, which they didn't have that year. They had a 2nd-round pick who was Adrian Clem, who happened to be on the Steelers staff as an offensive line coach a few years ago. But that's a whole nother story. So when you look back, obviously, we chased Brady for however many years he was in New England, and he was special, and we and the rest of the NFL missed it. And, a lot of times people point out, well, you took T. Martin. I said, yeah, we did, and I love T. T won a national championship at the University of Tennessee, and again, as a 5th-round pick, he was a really good 5th-round pick because he made our team and had a career, and he continues with the Baltimore Ravens as their quarterback coach. So happy for T, proud of T. Was Brady the better player? Obviously. I mean, history has proven that.
But you found those late round sleepers in other drafts too. You look at Brett Kiesel, picked 242 in the 2002 draft, an all-time Steelers player, at least of this century. And finding those guys late in drafts, how do you find those players? Is it through the interview process? Is it through talking to coaches?
No, it's when you get into the scouting process, which is a whole another session. We, the staff, implore ourselves, we got to know about everybody. We don't go in scouting for a specific position or specific players. No, we do an in-depth look at as many people as we can. And again, we value certain things. And if a player makes sense at a certain level, you take them. And fortunately, there's been some like a Brett Kiesel who exceeded expectations. Again, like I said earlier, sometimes those 6th and 7th rounders, maybe they make the team, maybe they're on your practice squad, they develop late, whatever. Brett turned into a great player because he turned into a Pro Bowler that was a contributor on on Super Bowl teams. So you just remain that consistent process. And I always challenge the guys when you get late in the rounds, we'd look up at the board and I said, look, guys, there's a Pro Bowler up there somewhere. It's our job to find him.
And those moments, finding those diamonds in the rough, what do you miss most about being a general manager since you've retired?
And again, we never kept score with the picks. The only score that matters is where did you end up? Did you win a Super Bowl? But what I miss the most is actually being on the college campuses, be it at games, be it at practices, be it in a film room watching film, talking to coaches, and going through that process. Game day itself, when you're around the team, obviously you win, you lose. Sometimes that was enjoyable when you won.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you lost, obviously it wasn't. But even sometimes when you won, it was like, okay, it was more of a relief than it was a satisfaction.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to do it again. Especially when you win a Super Bowl, nothing else matters. And okay, it's cool to win a game. It's cool to win the division. Okay, you're in the playoffs. Great. Okay, you got to the divisional round. Great. But unless you win the Super Bowl, you come up short. And sometimes that can be overwhelming.
If you could look back over your career with the Steelers and pick one more team to win a Super Bowl with, what team would that be?
You mean That we lost?
Yes.
Oh, unfortunately, when Green Bay beat us.
That one?
Yeah, because that was a close game. And honestly, Aaron Rodgers made some throws that were unique, and he made plays that not a lot of quarterbacks could make, and he made them that day. And when you're that close, and you don't win it, it stays with you the rest of your life. And the person I felt the worst for was Flozo Adams. And you're thinking, wait a minute, Flozo Adams, he was a one-year guy with the Steelers. And we had picked him up when Willie Colon tore his Achilles. And Flo was our right tackle that year. And we knew it was his last year in the NFL. And he had played a great career with the Dallas Cowboys. And we're in Dallas. And when we lost that game, sure, we all felt bad for ourselves, but I could still see Flozo, and I knew his career was over, and we came up short for him. And that's something you don't forget. And that's what motivates you to keep trying. And, unfortunately, we never got back. Obviously, you didn't get back, you didn't win. But that's the one that, because you're that close. And anytime a season comes to an end, you think about everything you got to do to just get back to where you just were.
And you look at the teams the last couple of years with Ben, Brown, and Bell. Do you feel like that team should have won a Super Bowl?
No, I think that we had opportunities. Each team
has chances.
Has a chance.
Yeah.
And, this team was stronger in this area. This team was stronger in that area. But like I said, with San Francisco and Kansas City, to get there, that's hard. And there's only one team that'll walk away happy. There's 32 franchises. And, I was part of 22 seasons. There was 2 seasons I was satisfied and 20 that I wasn't. And that would never change. So each and every group has a unique characteristic. Could we, should we, did we, all those kind of things. You think about them and you learn from them, you try to move on with that next one, which fortunately I can just watch and
Yeah, I was gonna wait. You can enjoy the action now. You can enjoy
Exactly.
This will be one of my final questions. Over your 22-year tenure with the team, like you just mentioned, that made you the longest tenured GM in Steelers history. You won 2 Super Bowls, made 5 conference championships, made 14 playoff appearances, had 18 seasons of a 500 record or better, and drafted many of your current and future Hall of Famers. When thinking back on it, what do you take away from it all?
It's hard, Alex. You take away the appreciation that you were able to be part of that. As I said, I had a very nondescript athletic background, and I grew up on the north side. When we were growing up, you couldn't get into the stadium, nor could you afford scalpers tickets. And, I listened to the Immaculate Reception on the radio because it wasn't on TV. It was blacked out, that game. So to be part of that organization for that many years, it's a little bit like, oh, did that really happen? And then when you realize it did happen, you just appreciate that you were blessed enough to be part of it.
And this question here that I'm asking you is something we've asked everybody we've interviewed, and I feel like it's a good way to basically end the interview. And it's, what advice would you give to any North Catholic student or any student in general as they move on to their career in decision-making in life?
I think, be a good person. Be a good person, because you're going to be judged on your character, and your success in whatever field you pursue will be determined by what kind of person you are. If you're irresponsible, if you're running the streets, you're not going to make it. You're not. And if you're very successful and you don't pull that success in and keep it in perspective, you're not going to be successful. You might be successful, but it'll be short term. So appreciate your opportunities. Do the best you can. You're going to have ups. You're going to have downs. Learn from both. Again, Coach Tomlin had a great saying. When you succeed, you got to be careful. That red carpet can get slippery.
Yeah.
And, I always remember that, because you do good things, cool, move on to the next thing. You come up short, cool, learn from it. Be better the next time. But be a good person. be fair to everybody and work. You just got to work. You talked about networking. When you get on the scene, don't worry about networking. People will find you. They'll say, wow, that Ryan works hard. Alex, man, he's a good kid. He really understands what we're trying to do. That they will recognize that. And then just, like I said, pursue something you love, because it'll be easy. I mean, I never felt like I was working when I was working in sports, because I loved it. As I mentioned, I'm going to go to games, high school games, just to go, because that's what we like to do.
And that's all we have for you today, Mr. Colbert.
Is
Mr.
that
Colbert.
it?
Yes.
Holy smokes.
Thank you for your time today.
No,
We
you gotta
really
go on
appreciate it.
another 30
We're going
minutes.
to another 45. Why not? Whatever. We'll
You guys,
get us out of a couple more classes.
Don't lie. You're just trying to get out of another class. Who we
Thank
kid?
you so much for your time today, sir. Thank you for all you do for North Catholic.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.